This is the My Writing Diary podcast. I'm Bill Wong. It is done. After about a year and a half of 40 to 50 hours a week, torment, anguish, tears, happiness, joy, I am done with my manuscript. It's about 300 pages, and it's the book that I wanted to write for the audience of one, myself. So I am very satisfied with the quality of the work and what I put into it. Many times during the writing process, I wasn't thinking like that. I was disgusted. I was staring at a blank page. I didn't know how to express myself. And many times I thought about quitting, but I didn't. Today I'm going to talk about the backstory, why I wrote it, about the book, and in the future, every week I will be doing a summary and a little bit on each chapter of the book until I get through the whole book. For today, the backstory. After I finished my first book, Why I Hate and Love Pickleball, I promised myself I would never write a book again. It was too difficult. What I had to go through psychologically, physically, not sleeping at night, getting up at 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning to jot some ideas down, going through the editing process, going through the cover design process, it was exhausting. And I said to myself, I would never do this again. Why would I ever do this? Until I went to a writer's group and I read a little bit of Why I Hate and Love Pickleball, and somebody made a comment, well, why don't you write a novel? And I said, well, I really can't. And he said, well, what you wrote for nonfiction is very good, but got me thinking. However, I didn't want to just write a novel. I wanted to write something that would change the way people thought. I wanted to write something that will change the world and influence how people maneuver and go about their world. I had to first start with some of the themes. And some of the things that I think are very important, or at least I think I would enjoy writing about, were love and romance, even though I probably don't know that much about love and romance, so I had to learn. I also wanted to write about good and evil. Unfortunately, I learned through this process that there are shades of good and evil. There are shades of love and romance. I also wanted to write about coming of age and survival and redemption, power and its corruption, and identity and self-discovery. And I thought it would really be interesting to write about these things in the middle of a war. Whenever war seems to come into the story, it accentuates and intensifies all the emotions that go on. I also wanted to talk about family and relationships, hope and perseverance, and also the insanity of all the things that are going on today. And obviously, when you talk about war, you have to talk about death and mortality. I touched on a lot of ideas in the story, how people come to that level of killing somebody, not only injuring somebody, using violence, but killing somebody, and how they come to the determination that life is not worth living. So we talk about suicide. I talk about all these issues because I wanted to write with two goals in mind. One, I wanted to find truth. And then I found the truth probably about 80 or 90% into the book. I wrote a line and it told me what this book was about. And I'm going to read that in a second. I wanted to write with courage. One of my editors made a comment that he felt like I was writing without fear, but not writing with courage. I took that to heart and pushed the envelope of what I felt comfortable writing about. I wrote a couple of scenes that are incredibly sad, descriptive, and talks about human nature and what humans can do to one another. It made me cry. One of those scenes, after I did the research, looked at some of these images that were happening in the world, it made me cry. I would go to my car and just cry for 15, 20 minutes. Then I would get out of my car, I'd go do something, go back to my car, and I would cry again. It was just hard on me. I had a conversation with one of my brothers, and he said, well, it sounds like you're a method writer. And I said, what is that? He said, well, method actors really envelop and encapsulate the emotions and the character that they are about to act. It sounds like what you're doing is method writing, and I had not heard that. I don't know if that's a thing, but maybe the way I write is method writing, where I need to understand that character, get into their skin, write about it, regardless of how good or evil they are, make them do things that are terrible, horrible things, and other characters do wonderful things. And be able to describe those situations and what they do and what they think using words. And this was very difficult for me because when I was in college, I would get C's and B minuses in my writing because I was not a very good writer. I needed to learn the basics of writing, construction, and concision. And those were very difficult for me to learn, but I wanted to write well. Unfortunately, or fortunately, the audience of one, myself, is very satisfied with this. As I said before I was not, where I would read parts of it and I go, oh my God, you are so terrible, you can't write, this is not clear, I don't know what you're trying to say. I've gotten better as an editor. It takes me to about the 5th or 6th edit before the work is good. I was very smart in that I hired a professional editor, and it's sort of interesting. When I asked him and was interviewing editors, I said, well, why should I hire you? And he made a comment, well, because I'm one of the best. And if you want to hire and work with the best, you should hire me. If you don't, that's fine. And I love that. And he gave me a lot of I don't want to use the word brutal, but I will. He gave me a lot of brutal comments about my work and where things didn't make sense, and not only the dialogue and the scenes. And I got better and better, and I wrote, and I took into account 95% of the feedback he gave me. A couple of things I did not agree with, but that's my decision. And he may be right. I hope I'm right. I'm going to talk about the book itself. I talked about the backstory. I talked about why I wrote it, because I want to make an impact on the world. A lot of the themes from the coming of age, power and corruption, family relationships, and hope are really important to me. The main idea of this book, which is very similar to Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea, I Went Out Too Far, is this line: too often we look away. Too often we look away. When something's difficult, we as humans, we ignore it. We look away from it. We think it's not there. Only by looking at something, the horrid, terrible things that happen in this world, can we change it. And I completed that line to include, too often we look away to appease the worst demons of our nature. And then we do nothing. I hope people, when they read this book, they realize that you have to look at some of the grotesque things that are happening with humans and make a change. The change can only happen within yourself. You can influence other people, which I hope people are influenced to do something. Even if you look at something, you change it. Even by me writing about this thing, I've changed it because I'm a different person than when I started the very first word of the very first page to the last word of the last page. I am a different individual than I was. I'm going to talk a little bit about this book. The book is titled New Year's Day War, and it's a modern retelling of a Romeo and Juliet set against the backdrop of a Middle Eastern conflict. And it explores themes of duty, regret, and unspoken emotions. Rivka, an underpaid yet overqualified Israeli middle school teacher, sees her life upended when Egypt and Syria launch a coordinated attack on Israel. She begins as a gentle, compassionate figure, comparisons to Fred Rogers, a.k.a. Mr. Rogers, but is thrust into the world of brutality and impossible choices. Embedded in the frontline combat unit alongside Rami, a Palestinian interpreter, Rivka must navigate the chaos of war and fight against Hamas terrorists and the pervasive sexism of the military. facing modern-day adversaries reminiscent to Adolf Hitler and Gaddafi. Rivka finds herself at the heart of an escalating conflict that hurtles toward nuclear annihilation. Ultimately, she is forced to make sacrifices that could cost her honor, soul, and the life of the man she loves. New Year's Day War is a precise, gritty, and layered character-driven novel that examines love, intimate relations, and the harsh realities of war. I did an incredible amount of research by reading, watching, and talking to former military personnel, Secret Service agents, and intelligence officers. And it was really interesting to get their feedback, and some of the scenes had to be changed because of these professionals. The manuscript is about 74,000 words, and I am very pleased with the work. I'm in the process now of talking to literary agents. Hopefully someone will like it. But like I said, I am very happy with the work I did, and I'm not happy with any work I do. A lot of the times when I write, I think to myself, oh my God, why are you doing this? But I'm very pleased with what I created. And if people can understand that too often we do look away and we do have to look at something, I've accomplished my mission, which is to change the way people look at the world. Next week, I'll be talking about the first section of the book, which is a prologue. I'd like to thank everyone who's read parts of the book, who've given me some inspiration, who's listened to some of my writing, people who've given me feedback of what they liked and didn't like, and my editors, because I am writing this for everyone else. I am not writing this for myself, even though this was such a terrible, joyous experience. I cannot explain how horrible and wonderful this was, because I can see things that I didn't see before. I can express things that I wasn't able to express before, and I hope people read this and it changes who they are for the better. Thank you very much. This is the My Writing Diary podcast. I'm Bill Wong.